It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Simon Fraser's Red Leafs head volleyball coach, Coach Gina Schmidt. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you tell me about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college volleyball?
I don't know if I ever had it as a specific goal. I knew I loved playing volleyball, and I guess it was a natural progression from playing as long as I could. I was still playing professionally overseas when my former coach offered me an assistant coaching position. And I had probably lived in 5 different countries in 6 years, and I thought maybe being in one place for more than a year at a time would be kind of cool. And I knew I had tried coaching, and so I thought I would. This was a great opportunity. Uh, took the job and never kind of stopped.
What was that experience like for you going to Oregon State and playing collegiate volleyball?
I grew up in a really small town in northern Alberta, so it was definitely I don't know, I wouldn't call it a culture shock, but definitely a big step coming from a very small town. And I think one of the things I liked about Oregon State is that it was in a college town, but I mean, it was still much bigger than where I grew up. I had had some experience with kind of high level volleyball through the Canadian junior national team and the success of my club teams kind of growing up. So it was definitely a step up in the level of competition that we played, and it was kind of great getting to play against people like Kerry Walsh or Logan Tom, some future Olympians. And so just, I mean, it was a great experience overall, but certainly, took a little bit of adjustment when I first got there, but overall had an awesome experience there.
For you as a volleyball player, what was that experience like putting on that Oregon State jersey?
Probably for the first time, there was probably some nervousness and excitement at the same time. But as you get going into your university career, you start to build up a pride for your school and your team. And where I grew up, we didn't really have rivals, so it was kind of unique to have this to arrive and have this built-in rivalry with the University of Oregon. And at first I didn't really get it, but after about 3 months, it was like, well, yeah, no, of course we hate the Ducks. Like it was just this Civil War was just so kind of ingrained. And as I've spent more time in, college athletics in the US, like just those rivalries, it was the same when I was at Montana, the Grizz Cat rivalry, just something that you don't see to the same level in Canada. So I thought that was pretty cool.
As you talked about that rivalry, what was that experience like playing Oregon and being with such a good rival?
Yeah, I mean, in every sport, it didn't matter what. When we went there or they came here, we always had it was probably usually our biggest crowd of the year, and you definitely didn't want to lose that one. So that it was fun. It was just the level of competitiveness and just the pride that you took in winning that Civil War game. And I some of the football games that I remember, a double overtime win that we had at our place. I mean, the whole stadium rushed the field, and then on a penalty got called back, and then we won again for the second time, and I mean it was just pandemonium. And I remember that game because we had a recruit visiting, and she's like, "Is every football game like this?" And I go, "Well, this is particularly a Civil War game that we win in double overtime is a pretty big deal." And she did end up coming to OSU after that visit, but. Just yeah, that was just awesome to see how much people got involved in those Civil War battles.
During your college time, what was some of your biggest accomplishments on the volleyball court?
I mean, I had some individual, I guess, awards that I got during that time in terms of some all conference recognition, some academic recognition. But I think for me, the biggest one was when we qualified for the NCAA tournament for the first time in almost 20 years. So in my senior year, the year before we had come close, but we ended up exactly 500 in the Pac, what was the Pac-10 at the time. So we needed to have a winning record. So we ended up at 500. So in our senior year, when we finally made it into the NCAA tournament from what is a very difficult conference, that was probably my most memorable thing. We beat UCLA at home to kind of get us maybe the win we needed to get into the tournament. So that was a pretty cool experience in terms of seeing the growth of the program during my time there.
How was that experience like for you getting to play professional volleyball overseas in countries like France and Germany?
Again, kind of similar to when I left Canada to come to the US, there's always it's always unique to go and experience different cultures overseas as well. The game is played a little bit differently there, and each country has its own different unique cultures, right? So I was lucky that I did speak some French, when I got there. So in France, I was actually able to speak the language, but in places like Germany and Holland and Finland, maybe not as well, but everybody over there spoke English so well that it wasn't a big barrier. And also in volleyball, you only need to know about 10 words to know what's going on. The numbers 1 through 6 to know which rotation you're in, and then you play volleyball. So, but just it was awesome to see just the different styles of volleyball, the different maybe coaching styles, and we also got to play with people from other countries. I had played with Russians and Slovaks and Dutch players, so it was kind of cool to just meet players from all across Europe, and so that really kind of opened my eyes to different ways of maybe playing the game.
What was that experience like for you getting to coach in the Czech Republic?
So that experience, that would have been the World Grand Prix, where I was an assistant coach and also what we would call the team lead with the national team. So I was not actually like technically on staff that year, but every time they go to these competitions, they need to bring somebody along who is essentially a team lead and then also an assistant coach. So that was my first time doing that with our senior national team. And yeah, I mean, it was an awesome experience to see that level of play. And also, I'd only been maybe a head coach for a couple of years. So the amount I got to learn, by watching the caliber of international volleyball, even though I had maybe seen it when I was a player on the national team, it's different when you're in the coaching context, and then getting to see, all the things you have to kind of organize when you're at an international tournament like that. So I was in charge of, when is the bus leaving? Where's our food at? Like all of those things on top of the actual coaching with our senior team on that trip. So yeah, I remember it being just a really great experience.
For you, what was that experience like getting into college coaching and first going to Montana?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned earlier, I was lucky in that I was playing and basically got offered a Division I assistant coaching position, kind of on a silver platter because of my connection with the head coach at the time, Jerry Wagner. So I didn't even know if I was necessarily ready to be done playing, but I thought it was such a great opportunity that I didn't want to pass it up. And it also helped me having maybe a former or a prior relationship with Jerry. So coming in there, it was pretty smooth in terms of knowing, maybe his values and his systems. So yeah, it was a pretty smooth transition, and I kind of knew I had made the right decision when I was on the bench, coaching in games, and never once maybe realize or thinking that I wanted to still be out there playing. I didn't really miss the playing, but I really found a love for trying to help other people get better. So it was, yeah, I knew I'd kind of made the right choice maybe in that decision.
How was that transition like for you going from being an assistant coach at Montana to becoming a head coach at Simon Fraser?
I was like lucky in that I learned a lot when I was at Montana for 5 years. Jerry was a great teacher, and in terms of learning about recruiting and practice planning and all of the things that go into running a collegiate program, because there's coaching just on the court, but then there's all these other things that go around actually building a program. So I thought I learned a lot during my time in Montana, but nothing ever prepares you for being, in that first chair, as they say, and having everything rely on you. So definitely there was learning that went along, kind of learn as you go, and I'd say that's still the case today. That I'm hoping that I still each year I'm getting to be a bit better. So I hope that what I learned in my 10 years ago, I'm still trying to progress and evolve as a coach. But definitely, all the decisions, the buck stops at you as the head coach, and I think some part of that's great because you don't have to worry about somebody listening to you or not. But yeah, there's just a lot more responsibility. But I've enjoyed it immensely.
For you, what was that feeling like getting announced to become the next head coach and getting started?
Honestly, it was maybe a little bit of a surprise. Not a surprise, but when the job description, they were asking for somebody with 5 years of head coaching experience, and I had been an assistant coach at a Division 1 level for 5 years, but I didn't have any university head coaching experience. And I always thought that was strange because, how do you get experience without if nobody's willing to give you a job, right? So there was a few things on the job description. I think a master's was preferred. I didn't have that yet at the time, and so I actually didn't think I had the qualifications to even get the job. So I was even contemplating even whether I should apply. And of course, somebody convinced me to apply because one of the things they were looking for was a Canadian with NCAA experience. And I know that in that realm, I might have been one of the few who had could check that box. So I ended up applying, but without thinking I was going to get the job. And then when I kind of got to be a finalist and went on my interview, it was more of a surprise that the in-person interview felt more like a recruiting trip than necessarily an interview. So at the end of that visit, when I got offered the job on the spot, I was like, okay, well, one, I was surprised, and two, just super happy and kind of signed right there.
For you, what was that feeling like stepping onto the volleyball court for the first time as a head coach? And what was that experience like getting your first win?
A little bit of relief in terms of after you get that first win. I did take over a program that had been struggling. They had won 2 games in 2 years. So I actually think it was the perfect situation to step into because we couldn't really get worse, right? So as a new head coach, I knew there was things I needed to learn, but if we'd have won 2 games in 1 year, I could have doubled our win percentage. So I didn't have huge expectations, nor were there huge expectations on me as a first time head coach. And I found that the team was really receptive and super welcoming to any new ideas that I brought in. So yeah, I didn't have maybe huge expectations. So going into that first season was just super grateful to be there. And then every win that we got, which I think we ended up with at least 6 or 7 that year. So it was then after that we had a winning record ever since. So yeah, it was just grateful to be there for sure. And just yeah, every win that we got was a step up in the right direction.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you started to build for the volleyball program?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into kind of the culture that we want to build, and it does start with the people. So for me, we began with kind of hiring or recruiting good staff to be with there, people who are knowledgeable but also have a similar philosophy, in that we're striving for excellence, but we're also in the business of developing humans, so both athletically, academically, and just good character humans. So that was important. And then, the recruiting process is how do we, the culture is of the people that you have there. So recruiting players that have similar values, similar goals, and obviously the athleticism to help our team succeed, right? So there are a lot of people that want to play university volleyball, and I think there's only kind of maybe not as many that would be the right fit for our program or our culture. So I think being selective in the people that we bring in, and then from there building where we want to go.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
So currently we in the GNAC we're kind of in the Pacific Northwest. So we've got both Alaska schools, University of Alaska, Anchorage and Fairbanks, and then we kind of cover several schools in Washington, like St. Martin's, Seattle Pacific, Western Washington, Central Washington. Some always good rivalry games there, and then we're into Western Oregon, NNU in Idaho, and then MSUB in Billings.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Seattle Pacific comes to home versus going away to Alaska?
Well, it's always more fun playing at home with a home crowd versus a place like Alaska. They've got a great fan base, so and certainly yeah, it makes it a little noisier and a little harder when you're the away team. So, but it makes for fun games, right? Like when that intensity is amplified by a good crowd. So while it is always we always prefer being in the home team with the crowd at our back, it is fun to play in some of those other venues when they do draw a big crowd and just makes for like just a fun competition atmosphere.
What are some of the game day traditions that you have helped implement it throughout your career?
I think the biggest thing for me is that our players just have regular routines, and for them as individuals, like, are they kind of setting themselves up every day to be the most consistent they can for each match. So our individual players will have their own routines. And then in terms of our team, we would have, routines as well in terms of how we warm up, the timing of things, how we prepare our pregame meals. Like we kind of try to keep as consistent as possible, which is easier sometimes at home than it is on the road because there's some things on the road that you can't control. But for me, consistency is the big thing in terms of when we're on match day is how can we keep it as consistent as possible while still having the flexibility if something doesn't go as planned.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes? And as a head coach, what do you look at in them?
Well, the recruitment process kind of never stops, seemingly. We are, I mean, our SFU is a fairly academic school, so grades are certainly something that are an important thing for us because they have to have the grades to get into our school. And then obviously their skill and athleticism, do they have those two things that will help our team be better on the court? And then kind of as I talked to before about just are they the right fit for our culture and our team? And so we do spend a lot of time getting to know the athletes as people and having them come visit, meet our team and all of that so that we are aware of how they might mesh with our current team. We've never taken a player that we've only seen on video, even if they are from another country. We had a Finnish Canadian player who, we flew from Finland so that we could meet her in person before we decided whether we would take her. So that's important for us that we get to know them both as athletes and people before they join our program, so that we feel that we can find the right fit for our team.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen putting on that uniform for the first time versus your seniors putting it on for the last time?
I mean, it's always I mean, we just had our senior night, less than a month ago, and it's always both, kind of this sad time when you're seeing somebody put their jersey on for the last time, but also a little bit rewarding. And when you look at all the growth that they've had from their freshman year, and when I was talking about me as a freshman at Oregon State, there's always nerves and excitement when you play in your first game, and sometimes even though they've played hundreds of games before that. They're not even certain why, they're nervous playing this game at a university level, but it almost inevitably happens. But then when you look back, when those athletes are seniors and just how much they've grown, just as a volleyball player, but just as people as well, it's always kind of rewarding just to have had the chance to kind of go through that process with them.
As a head coach, what is it that experience like seeing them play professional volleyball or even getting into coaching afterwards?
I mean, selfishly, it is. I do kind of love when I see our athletes get into coaching. Not because I think I have any role in that, but just I think I love the opportunity for them to give back, right? And a lot of our players are, like I've talked about, are great people and great role models. So when they get the chance to go and help the next generation, I am always happy to see that. And I've had players. I coached one athlete on the national B team, and so she was 22, and she said that I was the first female coach she'd ever had, and I thought that was like just shocking, but also sad that in her entire career of playing that she'd never had a female coach. And not that to say that male coaches weren't good. She obviously got to a very high level. It just to never have that kind of role model all the way through. And I actually was probably on the flip side of that growing up, I had more female coaches than male coaches growing up, which at the time in the 90s was probably rare, but probably did result in my becoming a coach in some respect, just because of the influence that they had on me and my upbringing. So that, when I see my former athletes get into coaching, I'm always, it does, it is rewarding to see, and hopefully that they have the same experience that I do as a coach, finding it yeah, very fulfilling.
So far, what have been some of your biggest accomplishments so far as a head coach, and what are some of your future plans for the program moving forward?
I mean, probably the first thing that comes to mind is just having gotten our SFU program kind of turned around in a better direction. Like I said, they'd going from two wins in 2 years to we tied for the conference championship this year. So it's been a slow build, but I think we've done it the right way, and I think I'm when I first arrived, my athletic director was like, you have full reign to, if you want to cut your whole team and start from scratch, you're allowed. And I'm like, well, I mean, these people, came to SFU for a reason. Why would I do that? I think we can coach them up. I think we can, get them better, and we can slowly, recruit some more players. So it has been a slow process, but I've been just, yeah, super happy with where we've been able to build our program to. I'm also lucky that our national team training center is in Vancouver, BC, or Richmond, or the Lower Mainland. So being in close proximity, I've been able to, in my summers and my time off, help with the national team program. So that's also an area of just professional development, and where I can learn, get into other people's gyms. So I've been really happy to have those experiences as well. Like you said, I had the opportunity to coach in the Czech Republic this past year, coaching the U19 team in Croatia at the World Championships. So those are, some other opportunities that I've had that have been super valuable on top of just what we've been doing here at Simon Fraser.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college volleyball?
I think the thing that I tell our players is don't be surprised when it's hard. There's so much that will be different. The university setting in terms of versus the high school just classes, there's a lot more responsibility on you to take care of, getting your things in on time, studying for tests. Like there's fewer assignments, and just your whole 50% of your grade might just be your final exam. So you have to do, 3.5 months of work, and then you take one test, and that's going to be half of your grade. So just the difference in the schooling is going to take some adjustment. The difference in the level of play, the speed of play is going to be different. So even though you're used to being the best player on your team, you're now on a team with all the best players from their teams, and they might be 5 years older than you. So it's always an adjustment, and it's going to be, at some point, it's going to be hard. Or if you're away from home, you are going to get homesick. So in 2 or 3 months' time, when it's hard and you're homesick, don't be surprised. I told you it was going to be hard. So that's the biggest thing. So, and then the second year, it's going to get a little bit easier. And by your senior year, it's like, oh, maybe I don't even have to go home for for the summer because all my friends are here, right? So it always gets easier as you go, but the first year, expect it to be hard.
What advice would you give those seniors that have aspirations of playing professional volleyball?
I think there are a lot of leagues overseas, so it's actually not that difficult to find somewhere to play. Finding a right, usually you go through an agent to get there. So, I mean, making sure that you are developing throughout your university career to where you are at a level in which you could help a team overseas. But every country has some sort of league, and obviously some countries are stronger than others, but then there's like a second division or a third division. So there are a lot of places that you can play. Some will be more lucrative than others. You may not in your first year make that much money, or maybe you just get your costs paid for just to get over there. They'll fly you over there, and you maybe have a side job to help pay for things. But it's not as hard as people would maybe think it is to get over there. But it is, again, another adjustment of maybe even less support that you'd have maybe at the university with your coaches taking care of things. Or again, you might have to have a side job to start, and then if you get a little bit more experience on your resume, then the next year you might get a better contract in a better country. So I think if it's really something that people want to do, just being persistent and being aware that it will be the cultural difference is real, and just getting used to this. It's probably not going to look like it does in university.
What advice would you give those college coaches looking to get started in coaching on the college level?
I think making connections, it's maybe bad to say, but it's who you know, but having good connections, the networking piece in coaching is super important because through those connections, people it's sometimes hard to like maybe quantify good coaching. So if somebody who I know says this person, is a good coach, they know what they're doing in the gym, or you're, if you're a club coach and you're quite successful, that can maybe speak for itself. But getting networking and getting to know other coaches, getting in other people's gyms and building up your coaching resume in terms of for us, there's provincial teams, there's national team programs. And just, in the NCAA, you see a lot of people just volunteer coaches that then, hang around long enough and they become a second assistant and work their way up. But it's putting in the time and getting to know people where you can increase that network that opens up opportunities, I think.
What advice would you give those future head coaches looking to build their own program?
Patience and hard work. And then just knowing your values, like in terms of having a philosophy, a coaching philosophy of why you do what you do and really knowing that. And that will help guide all the decisions that you have to make because it can be difficult. There's a lot of maybe pressure to win and be good right away. But, if you have if you're strong in your values and your philosophy, then that's going to help guide all of your decisions and hopefully in the right way.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program app?
I wish I could say it's like, oh, I've got this great coaching social media presence, but I'm so old school. But basically, they would be able to find anything that we do through our SFU volleyball Instagram account. That would be the best way. And then if anybody actually ever wanted to reach me directly, they could just email me at my school at SFU email, which would be on our website.
Thank you again, Coach Schmidt, for your interview and best of luck in your future at Simon Fraser.
Thanks for having me.
You can find Brandon's Sports Talk on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk, or Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, or Twitter at Talk_Brandon. Thank you again, Coach, for your interview and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.